Allow me, for a moment, dear viewer, to build a case of selfish intent with the byproduct of animosity out of a few years of headlines, Twitter threads, and YouTube community guideline adjustments.
Let the demonetization process begin!
Meet Carlos Maza, the self-proclaimed Marxist pig and self-handled gay wonk producer at Vox Media's Strike Through, which seeks to explore the challenges facing the news media in the age of Trump. And then enter player 2. Steven Crowder, a Canadian-American commentator, actor, and comedian, the host of Louder with Crowder, a late-night-style comedic show covering news, pop culture, and politics on his own site. Also, a former contributor of Fox News. It should be noted that politically Crowder is a conservative, and hence Carlos's complete and utter opposite. As a result, naturally these two commentators find themselves at great odds with one another. So what happens and transpires throughout the rest of this video is of little surprise, but there are still implications that I'd like to get into, and we're going to do just that. Crowder has been known, in times, to rebut Maza's strike-through productions in the famous response-style videos that YouTube's commentary community has become so famous for. The construction of a response video is different per each commentator and for each of their own unique styles, some approaching it more seriously, others more factually. In Crowder's case, given that he's a comedian first and foremost and a commentator second, Crowder uses his own brand of humor that he finds entertaining. It's a mockery of humor in the form of skits using either costumes and caricatures of individuals that he makes fun of, or perhaps the odd funny voice. There's name-calling, of course, and then the odd exaggeration every once in a while. Harmless enough, it would seem. Interestingly, however, in the years since Crowder has begun to rebut his political opposition online, specifically Maza has appeared to agree with me on that point, at least as of March 26, 2018. However, recently, his tune with regards to the Crowder rebuttals has changed, with his publication of the 19-post-long Twitter thread as of scripting this video on May 30th, 2019. Since I started working at Vox, Steven Crowder has been making video after video debunking strike-through. Every single video has included repeat overt attacks on my sexual orientation and ethnicity. Here's a sample.
Before we get to the video, with our favorite lispy sprite from Vox. It's ridiculous. It's bonkers. You're being given a free pass as a crappy writer because you're gay.
That center line on his little queer graph there. What is
well,
that
now
line?
the graph is queer?
Violence, filth.
Okay, so the little queer can eat his chips all nonchalantly. It's code for rape, Mr. Queer eating chips on the Vox channel. Chip, 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 but you can eat just one. Like dicks. This is what Mr. Gay Vox wants to do. Mr. Lispy Queer from Vox. What were you holding, Gay Latino from Vox? Even his hand movement and fast motion is gay. Now we're here with the short-haired angry lesbian on Skype. And cable news bitching. Two gay guys sitting there eating a banana. We get the symbolism there. The truth is hiding in a closet 2 weeks later, probably along to his next Pride Parade outfit. This guy on the gay semi-Latino Vox. Oh, okay, so you really are just an angry little queer. All right, I can't deal with this Sprite anymore. Okay, he just sachets across without, the gay Vox Sprite is wrong! Now he could be a tranny, Your Honor! Never know. How many lispy, angry Sprites and Vox sachet across your screen and try and tell you otherwise. Or you, by the way, the gay Mexican guy, the gay Latino V-neck. Gay Mexican. Mexican gay guy used to work. Mexican gay Latino there at Vox. Oh, gay Latino from Vox. The token Vox gay atheist Sprite with surprisingly flaccid chest, considering how thin he is. It is very bizarre to me. Ad hominem, yes, but it was an addendum to fat.
Maza goes on to complain about the names Crowder has called him in his rebuttals, leading to others mimicking the abuse he feels he's been shunted with. How he thinks these rebuttals are responsible for his phone number being doxed to the public, and as a result, his phone blowing up with demands to debate Steven Crowder. How, as a result of Crowder's videos, his life has been made miserable because of who he calls Crowder fanboys. As of post 5 in that thread, there's not really much that's wrong with what he said, at least to me. He is entirely within his rights to complain about his internet woes being on the internet. That's not to say that some people might have a different opinion on the matter, that of when you become a public figure and you decide that it's okay to put your opinion out on the internet, you have to accept that there will be people who disagree with you in every which way that they can. It's a rule that if you find yourself on the internet, you kinda do have to accept that at some point you will come face to face with vitriol that has endured here since the internet's inception. Sorry to say. But that's not the discussion that we're going to have today. Let's agree to leave that point behind us and perhaps pick it up another day. What I'd like to talk about transpires in the 6th tweet. Quote, "That being said, I'm not mad at Crowder. There will always be monsters in the world. I'm pissed at YouTube, which claims to support its LGBT creators and has explicit policies against harassment and bullying." This, my friends, this is where our discussion begins. This has been going on for years, and I've tried to flag this shit on several occasions, but YouTube is never going to actually enforce its policies because Crowder has 3 million YouTube subscribers, and enforcing the rules would get them accused of anti-conservative bias. Which is an interesting claim to make, I'd say, not simply on the basis that YouTube has emphatically enforced its policies to the detriment of others, regardless of their political affiliation during the YouTube adpocalypses of 2017, when YouTube purged non-family-friendly content in an attempt to keep advertisers after they had lost millions in advertisements. And then there was the 2018 adpocalypse, wherein lesser-known creators suffered under major monetization changes. But I'm just getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Not only is it ridiculous to suggest that YouTube doesn't enforce its policies, admittedly very poorly, and with an indiscriminate, wide, unclear arc that causes unending frustrations for its user base, but it's ridiculous, specifically because in 2018 YouTube itself invested $20 million into educational videos. And guess which news media organization was on that list? You would be correct if you had said Vox Entertainment, the very media group that Maza happens to work for. Quote, "Which is all to say, I work my off to create smart, thorough, engaging content for YouTube, a company that claims to give about LGBT creators, and it's miserable to have that same company helping facilitate a truly mind-melting amount of direct harassment. Obviously, it's not coincidence that Maza is playing up the LGBT aspect of his personality to suggest that YouTube is intentionally engaging in bigotry by virtue of not treating him in accordance with his protected class, that being LGBT. Keep in mind, the date of this post is May 30th, just a little bit prior to that of June 1st, which happens to be Gay Pride Month. And Maza has added YouTube directly in his Twitter thread. The intention, I would say, is fairly clear, that he's attempting to garner as much attention using whatever clout that he can. But what else is interesting about Maza, hypocrite that he is in fact guilty of the same sort of threatening harassment type nonsense that he doesn't enjoy experiencing. With such nuclear hot takes as, quote, "milkshake them all, humiliate them at every turn, make them dread public organizing, and get back to me when you're ready to personally assassinate people I find annoying on Twitter, then we'll talk." And finally, lots of guys with weirdly shaped dicks on Twitter today. P.S. I like your Jew face. Now these are just a few examples of the type of behavior that Maza is so up in arms about, but I believe I have made my point very clear. That being that if Maza can't take it, then he certainly shouldn't be dishing it, now should he? Blathering it on extra thick, he goes on to discuss his family's reaction to the harassment and retaliates that YouTube has done nothing about it, that they're not curbing the voices of what he has decreed are incredibly powerful cyberbullies. And honestly, people, at this point, if you hadn't had a throwback moment to preschool and cringed at the uncanny similarities, then someone obviously doesn't remember pre-K properly. But we're not done yet. Maza continues on and decides his best course of action going forwards is to initiate a flagging campaign. For those of you who are unaware of what a flagging campaign is, it goes a little something like this. You flag somebody for content, regardless of whether or not they deserve it, and you enthrall other people in your community and who follow you to flag that person as well, justified or not, until they are either crippled on the platform or removed entirely from it. It goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, it is the absolute worst thing you could do by every YouTuber standard. Not YouTube, YouTuber standard. For the most part, that is. You see, the environment of YouTube is such that it has been made up of independent, small-time, everyday average people only united solely in their love of video production. And Maza, as a person who works for a multi-million-dollar media company that, as we've established, YouTube has a financial investment in, calling upon YouTube and his own following to target another creator doesn't bode well with the rest of the YouTube community, that being the everyday, average, nobody Joe. Yours truly. Because Maza is in essence directly targeting someone else on what isn't an even playing field. Effectively, Maza has turned himself into the power, the aggressor, the bully, which is not a winning position for him in this scenario. Not by any stretch of the imagination. He carries on for another several tweets, discussing his position, failing in allocating blame further, playing up the LGBT creator card extensively, and then he adds on to that sentiment, not only going after YouTube, but further incorporating Twitter into this issue as well, on the virtue that Crowder merchandise includes a, quote, "socialism is for fags" t-shirt, which has since been pointed out as actually being a "socialism is for figs" t-shirt, but potato. Then he wraps up his sentiments, saying that even if he does get his way, it will be bittersweet victory, because people will still be pissed at him. Just for kicks, he delivers one last twist of the knife into the hearts of the easily, emotionally manipulated. If this, as Maza has reported, has been something that's been going on for a few years, then why would he wait until now to make it such a big issue? I had already pointed out earlier in this video that it was just prior to June, Gay Pride Month, and Maza lays on the LGBT card pretty thickly, I would venture to say. But there is more to the story if you look a little bit deeper, my friends. If you take a closer look, you will note that Vox Media's video making department is not in fact their most lucrative ticket on the docket. Big surprise. However, rather it's their podcast department that is the successful business venture for them. Also, it should be noted that Vox Media has shifted its hiring towards part-timers and contract workers since its staff unionized. You should note that this article was posted the very same day Carlos Maza posted this thread to his Twitter, which is by no coincidence if you were to ask me. The day before, now the infamous May 30th thread. Strike-Through Boys proud to participate in an hour-long work stoppage to support Vox Union. We need major raises for underpaid staff, especially women in POC. Raises that exceed the Fed's inflation target. Severance longer than management's proposed 2 weeks. The best part of being in a union is realizing that you should have the power to redefine normal, to imagine work as it should be, not just as it's always been. Be brave, reject cynicism, and most importantly, stick together. Shit only seems impossible until you decide it isn't. Your boss wants you to doubt your own desire for fair treatment. They want you to think, I'm asking for too much. I'm being unreasonable. You're not. You deserve fair compensation for your labor, a healthy work-life balance, and to live a dignified life. Fight for it. All that in combination leads me to believe that Carlos's intention with attacking Crowder was not, in fact, to drastically alter YouTube and their policies and their guidelines and the way that they approach harassment on the internet. However, it was rather to optimize his bargaining position with Vox Media, as he was a union rep, using a hot-button topic to garner the attention that always comes with attacking YouTube. Especially when one considers that a week later, the same day that Vox Adpocalypse was trending on the internet, the unionized Vox employees staged a walkout the final day of bargaining, and then the chips fell where they may. People started to lose their channels, their monetization, their ad revenue, and worlds started to crumble. These are just 2 examples of members of the YouTube community experiencing the YouTube banhammer of justice, but countless others felt its wrath as well in the fallout of this incident, just as we've seen with every new YouTube policy rollout. At this point, we know what to expect. People lose their income, their platform, their voice. The sucky thing is that likely this was something in the works anyway, prior to Carlos Maza's hissy fit on Twitter. These things don't just happen overnight, or even within a week. It does take time to reconfigure the code, especially on a platform as large as this is. But Maza just gave them the very excuse they needed to roll it out when they did. Ultimately, I do not think Maza is solely to blame for all of this nonsense. I do think that it is shared between him and every other news journalist that's actually an activist in journalist clothing. He saw an already established pattern, something that has been a reoccurrence for a few years now, and he took advantage of it for his own cause. The fact that we are already at a point where he could recognize a pattern, however, that is the big problem. YouTube is not going to go backwards, my friends, only forwards, and not a lot of people are quite happy with it. Not even remotely, I'd say. And I understand. The YouTube that I enjoy, the one that I love, is about a bunch of nobodies doing what they want on their own terms. But we are coming to a point where that is no longer possible. The internet isn't going to remain the internet that we've grown to love and care for, but I don't have a solution for you, unfortunately. There is no real competitor to rival this platform. I mean, I do post my videos to Bitchute, but it's still not enough, obviously. There are laws being passed in whole countries at this point, first world countries, that make it incredibly difficult to completely speak one's mind in an unfiltered manner. At least you worry about going to jail or being fined, reprimanded in some way by the law, in such a way that makes no sense. We saw that with Count Dankula. People are moving on and giving up out of discouragement. That's where we are right now. The lack of willingness for clarity from YouTube doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in the platform that it will change for the better, or improve upon its mistakes. So I guess we're just going to have to sit and wait and see what happens. And you already know I'm not happy about that either.